All right. Today's a little different. I'm not doing drawing today. Um, we've been talking about uh, hurdles and getting projects done, um, and the things that convince us, or I guess just me, not to do what I have to do. Um, and I think, just in summary, there's a lot of real and powerful reasons why I don't end up uh, putting my, I guess you could just call it a product, out there. My product is the story that I'm working on, have been working on for several decades. But embarrassingly for me, although I've fleshed out a bunch of books, I've not sat down and written them, and I've not shared them with anybody. I've not made them available for purchase, because I have been more or less ruled by the hurdles that we've been talking about, those and many more. So, right now, what we're looking at, this is chapter 9. I've already got the first, what, 7 chapters. First 7 chapters of my second book are available on Audible. I did the audiobook for them, and you probably knew that. And this is more or less the process. Now, I've already done the voice recording for the second part. I had that done, I think, by the end of January. And right now it is close to the end of May. Uh, so by the end of January, I had the first audiobook out and published on Audible. I had some really intimate heart-to-heart conversations with people about, well, just sort of about my expectations of where this is going to go. And I think one of the big hurdles for me has been this expectation that I would be able to earn money doing this, essentially. Um, in my heart, I would love to do this full time. I would love to focus only on doing this. um, I think with the number of stories that I want to tell and the detail of the series, I think reasonably to get through as much of it as I aspire to get through, it seems like I would need to be able to focus full time on it. Now, whether or not that's possible really boils down to how the mechanics of life work. Um, and right now, the mechanics of life are not working in favor of me doing that. And so I had some long conversations with some friends of mine, just about where I am, um, with those facts, and how tempting it is really for me to just not even do this, not even invest the time into sharing the story with anybody, even though that's the last thing I want to do. It is also, at the same time, it is a very tempting option to go that direction, to say, hey, I'm not earning any money doing, like, I'm not receiving any benefit from doing this financially. So I just rather spend my time entertaining myself, right? Or, we have a lot of kids. There's a lot of time spent with the kids, and that's a good thing. Like, being a good parent, far more important than being a good writer, in my mind. And in the process of having these talks, I became discouraged. I don't know. There's no real reason to sugarcoat it. I think that my friends very reasonably wanted to point out, hey, look, writing is more or less a hobby for everybody, right? Not just for you, not just for me, but for everybody. Like, even the greatest writers you can think of, which for me would be like C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien. These men did not write as a profession. They wrote as a hobby. It was a side project for them. They had professions that they exercised. They were at work every day doing work. And I think, like the message is, hey, let's not be unreasonable. It's okay to be a writer. In fact, let's celebrate that fact, but expecting to be able to support your family being a writer is a little bit of a strange expectation, particularly in today's world. And not being able to support your family as a writer um, is not unusual. Like the greatest writers of all time were in the same boat. So it shouldn't really take anything away from my perception of what it is to be a writer. And I think it's at that point that I struggle the most. Um, because like I really want that validation. Where I could go to a family gathering and I could say I'm an author and leave it at that, and nobody in the room would question that. They'd be like, "Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. You're a writer. You're supporting your family writing. That's a legitimate job." When you don't earn money writing, you can't say that. I mean, you can say you're a writer, and you can point to the books you've written, and people will gladly agree with you. Um, but it's a different status. And so I think in some ways I took a lot of discouragement away from being told that the greatest writers in recent memory did it as a hobby. That was very discouraging to me because in my heart, like I'm really hoping to spend more and more and more time doing this. Um, but if I'm honest, I know that it wasn't meant as a discouragement. It was meant as an encouragement. It was meant to say, look, you can be a truly great writer and not receive any financial benefit from it. That's not even unusual. It's pretty typical of the profession. And I think in our world today, um, and I'll just say this for your benefit, I think that there has been a period of time in modern history where art and artists have been highly valued. And I think the pinnacle of that has really sort of fallen to movie stars, who I would say they are artists. They are performing a craft. Um, they're making a form of art. And it's a form of art that has resonated with its audience so profoundly that these people they've become famous. They've become cultural icons. They've become celebrities that really in my youth and going before that and somewhat after it, it's just very common to think of them as very important people. And that I think is starting to go away in our culture. And there's a confluence of many reasons for that, but instead of diving into that right in this moment, what I want to say is the fact that art is becoming less of a celebrated thing culturally means that making a living creating art is less viable culturally as well. Like there's going to be less and less and less opportunity to do it, and I think we've seen it in many ways. Like the rise of generative AI artwork has really undercut a lot of the demand for artists who can make assets for projects like book covers, album covers, game art, comic books, just any kind of visual assets that are needed for different projects are now a lot more easily obtainable with generative AI art. I mean, I myself am taking advantage of it in multiple ways. When I'm creating a cover for one of my book projects, I'm going to use generative AI art as a foundation for the art that I'm then going to paint. When I'm making the cards for my game, same story. I'm going to use the generative AI art and then I'm going to paint it myself. Now, before that became an option, I just lacked the confidence to feel like anything I created was going to be good enough to match my vision. So I was more or less bound to the idea that I would need to hire an artist, like an accomplished and talented artist to create the visual assets that I needed. And I think being bound to that thought really led me to a place where I felt like I can't do some of the projects that I want to do. The artwork that I've been working on, those are sketches for, I want to do an art book that's associated with my story. Now, even as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, I would have thought that's not possible. I can't make an art book companion to my story. I might be able to hire someone to do that, and that might even be a worthy enterprise because I think it's a compelling product to offer. But that would really be the only option. And then sort of fleshing out the details of what it looks like to hire an artist to do that much artwork and to create something for you that is primarily artwork means ceding the kind of the ownership of it to the artist, right? Because if I'm going to sell an art book and I can't draw, I can't create the art that goes in my art book, all I've got are the ideas for the characters and the set pieces that I want represented in the book, which I think compared to the time, effort, to the work that goes into actually creating the art, and compared to the fact that if somebody's buying an art book, they're really buying it for the artwork, not so much for the concepts behind it. I think I would have to cede the majority of the ownership to the person creating the artwork because they're doing the majority of the work. So they should receive the majority of the profit as well. And that makes the whole project a lot less attractive as a, whatever, content creator, as a writer, as an artist. So feeling like that was my only option really meant like, number one, is it even worth my time to pursue it? Because what kind of benefit am I going to get from doing it in the first place, right? It's going to be very low because I would feel like, and I think the artist would also feel like, the majority of the profit should go to them. And there's already the question of like how many people are actually going to be interested in the art book itself, right? How many people are going to be interested in the story? How many people are going to be interested in the art book? I don't know. I haven't really reached that many people, and that's an area that I really, really strongly lack talent in, is I guess just the marketing of it. Like how do I reach people? How do I get my story in front of people who are interested in reading a story or looking at artwork associated with the story? Because that's not everybody. Not everybody is interested in doing that, particularly in the medium of books. Nowadays people are still very interested in stories, but they want stories that are told as television shows or movies or video games. Those are the primary mediums. So there's a smaller audience that's interested in books in the first place, and then how are they distributed, where are they distributed? Now there's a lot of ideas about how to approach that. I'm just gonna gloss over it quickly and just say, I'm bad at that part, and I've not been particularly effective at getting my book in front of people. So there's that piece, and then there's the piece of who gets the profit if anybody actually does want to spend some money to enjoy my story. Who's going to benefit from that? So setting all of that aside, I've kind of come to the conclusion, right, that I am going to create the book because that's what I want to do. I want to create the book. It's important to me. So relegating it to the space of this is a hobby, this is a side project, while that is hurtful to me in a sense, it's also perfectly reasonable, right? Like, I don't yet know how it would be that I would actually earn any profit from doing this. So I think it's in that regard, it's perfectly reasonable to say this is a hobby. This is not an employment. I might invest more work into this, more actual labor and attention and effort into the book. But if it's not going to earn money, then it's not my work, right? So that's kind of the mountain I've been climbing, the boulder to get over, to get to the place where it, is easier to recognize. Look, uh, we got to eat, so definitely need a job, since this is obviously not going to generate anything. I mean, I want to. I've spent my whole life, like speaking negatively about these things. So, that's some of that coming to the surface. I don't know that it's obviously not going to generate any income. That's silly. It's obviously not currently generating income, right? And we currently need to eat. I may not be able to invest as much time into this project as I want to, and that's going to be frustrating to varying degrees on different days. Um, but I think to just give up and not put anything else into it, then you can go nowhere, and that's not where I want to go. I want to go to where I've created the stories and the series is complete, and I have something that, even if nobody else is interested in it, I have something that I could say, hey, I did this, and also that I can share with my kids, and they can enjoy, and there's a piece of like legacy to it. I think any kind of artist or entertainer, down at the core, they have to get to a place where they are interested in they're interested in performing their craft for the sake of performing it. Like that's the payoff. The payoff isn't the payoff because you can't really depend on that. Wow, that was a lot. So anyway, since January, and now it's the end of May, I've been wrestling with all of that discouragement. And even though I have this whole project recorded, I haven't pieced it together. Like I haven't cleaned up the audio files. I haven't edited them together. They've just been sitting on my hard drive. So that's basically what I'm about today. This project, I divided it up into, so every statement in the chapter is a single audio file. I didn't do that when I was creating the first part. When I created the first part, I did it very differently. I think this is better, but it's different, and so I'm kind of relearning how to approach it. That file I had opened just to sort of refresh my memory. I had edited it before I started recording. One of the things with Audacity that I just don't, I don't know what I'm doing, is that it records pretty quietly. And so I find that I'm spending a lot of time increasing the volume level. And I don't know that that's like, I would kind of assume that's not ideal. Like that's not the way you really want to approach an audio project. But this is what I've done. This is what I've been able to do. So it's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm not super interested in re-recording the whole project. So I'm going to try to work with what I've got and see what I can do. Chapter 9, History. So I've, kind of the standard thing that I'm doing is I want to take anywhere where I'm not talking and just mute it so that you don't hear, like my lips smacking and stuff like that. I think that's off-putting. So basically what I've got to do is just run through this and bring the volume level up, which I'm doing with a normalization and then a limiter because I don't want it to go too far, and then silencing anything that is not me talking, which is not, this isn't super interesting work. but it does take a certain amount of focus to do. So it's kind of awkward.
Well,
You see how
well,
weird that sounds? Like you can hear the click.
well,
Click in, click out. Um, so like that's part of the reason why I want to listen to it. So I feel like I need to fade in and then I need to fade out.
well,
And it didn't really get rid of the click. Um, so again, like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an audio engineer. I didn't study this stuff. I just downloaded this. I almost said literally.
well,
I kind of got rid of it. I just downloaded this software and I'm trying to work with it. So that's not necessarily the best place to be. But maybe it's okay. Maybe it's fine. Like it may not be the best place to be, but it's certainly the place that I am, if that makes sense. Um, so it is what it is, I guess. Basically, that's what I'm saying. It is what it is. So I can imagine that if I were able to talk to somebody who is familiar with editing audio and working with audio, that they might say, hey, the way that you're doing it isn't great. Like there's a much better way to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. I haven't met that person. I don't know that person. So I'm not benefiting from that person's knowledge. I'm just trying to make it work, right?
the temple,
Okay. So I'm zoomed further in than I think I am. Like right here. Is this
okay,
yeah, I can hear a breath there. Okay. This is kind of funky. So I want to generate silence there, and I think I want to maybe fade this out a little more than what it is, and maybe fade this in.
Mr. Ray, Tia Hall is
Yeah, I think that worked pretty well.
name, but
Okay, can kind of hear myself wheezing there, so I don't want that. Get that silence. Do this may be unnecessary, but do a little fade out there, a little fade in there.
no name, but
Okay, I like so what's some of the reason why I'm keeping this
but it
with these spaces in it? I'm pretty confident in the timing. The way that I read it when I was recording, I think the timing is good. Um, so I want to leave these long spaces. Wait a minute. Did I do a fade in here? I think I did. Maybe not. I want to leave these long spaces because I think they're good. I think they help.
it's not a good
Okay, I don't. That didn't seem very noticeable.
it is not a good name.
Okay, this is a long silence. So we're gonna do silence and a fade in. Now, if I were more familiar with this software, the other thing that I would like to think is I would be able to know the shortcuts for some of these.
Wait,
Okay, I definitely hear a breath there. So this becomes kind of repetitive. And I think, when I was doing it before, I was investing even less thought into it. But that did create a couple of weird problems that I had to try to fix later. But I was just kind of going
they
through
were
and,
taught many
ooh,
taught many
ooh, what's that noise? Yeah, I don't like that at all. Let's try to get rid of that. Um, it led to some problems that I think I didn't want, and I wanted to figure out a way to get rid of. So, again, taking a different
We were
approach.
taught many,
Ooh, it's in here.
many, taught many,
There's like a click there. Um, I don't think I'm worried about it.
taught many things about the evils of TR. We were taught to fear.
Okay. Again, another breath here. So one of the things that I like, and this isn't for everybody, but when I'm doing boring or repetitive work, I like to be able to listen to music.
Oh, we were
And, sort of the nature of this is that you can't.
turn. You
Can't really listen to music and hear what you need to hear when you're trying to edit this audio. So that was part of the reason why, when I was in the midst of all the work of editing part one, I just kind of sort of started to turn my brain off.
Your name means of.
Okay. And yes, like I'm doing the voices, so some of it sounds super weird. I agree. Um, here's what it boils down to. I'm doing the best job that I can to try to make the voices match the character in my head, with varying degrees of success, but also with recognizing that I'm not a voice actor.
TR. And
Ooh,
and
I don't like that at all. Let's get rid of that. I'm not a voice actor, which, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe anybody can do, maybe voice actors are just doing what I'm doing. Like they're just trying to match the voice to the character the best they can with varying degrees of success. So maybe I am a voice actor. I don't know. I think it's safer if somebody's actually made a profession out of it to just assume they probably have a better idea what they're doing than I do.
TR. And
Okay, so that's just kind of like a little. It's fine.
I can't help but wonder why.
Okay, and then that's the end of that clip. See, I kind of like this because, shorter clips seems like less work. We can just take that off the end. Okay, and we'll save that for when we're going to audit it together. Audit it together, yeah, I guess. We are going to do something odd. All right, well, just being silly. So what I would like to do while I'm doing this is talk about other things. But as you can see, my brain, my processing power, my mental processing power has diminished over the years. And my ability to focus on two things at the same time is really just gone at this point. I can't even really pay attention to what my kids are doing and work a project at the same time. And I think that's why a lot of people like working in an office environment away from home.
I can't remember the mages ever speak.
It just makes it easier if you're in a place where everybody is, doing what you're doing. They're all working on a task. There's less distraction. And I've certainly been irritated with coworkers because of that. Like, people have this expectation that the workplace is going to be perfectly silent when, it's not. Like it's a weird expectation for me, but I get where it's coming from. Um, they want to be able to focus on their task. They don't want to listen to you tapping or clacking, or I mean, for me it was clacking because of my keyboard. You know, they don't want obnoxious distractions. They want to just focus on their work. That's why they're in the office in the first place, right? So I think, I get it. It's reasonable. So I think if I go too far past, then you still hear that little bit of a click. And I also think this is a longer audio file. So I think I'm zoomed out a little too far to really see what I'm doing. So, as I go along, I'm going to learn probably how to do this better. Like if I take my selection way out past where I want to fade out, then this isn't really going to get faded out very well. But if I want, by the end of this waveform, I want it to be 0, then I need to set my selection right there.
I only wondered what was significant about the...
Okay, what's this? I don't think there's anything I can really clean there.
About this Tial.
Okay, I can hear a breath very distinctly in there. I definitely don't want that. And we're just gonna... Again, I don't know how necessary this is. It might not be doing much of anything.
Tial. I know nothing of the name except the Ecclesay believe it is evil.
Okay, there's the big breath. So part of the reason why I'm doing the fade in instead of just hard silencing everything is that when I worked on part 1, I had some instances where it kind of sounded like it was obvious there was an edit there because part of a word was cut off.
Belonging to a person who had hurt the gods.
And, I didn't like it. I want to avoid it. So this is always cutting. When I generate silence on the end of the file, it's always cutting. I'm not sure why it defaults to doing that. I'm not even sure that's a bad thing. But I'm just noticing that that's what it's doing. Okay, so that's all of the Meseth files done. Okay, so let's just work straight through it, right? Let's just get it all done. We need to do it all anyway. So some of this I think I already normalized. I'm not sure how bad it is to normalize twice. Maybe it's super bad. Maybe it's the worst thing you could do because you're just introducing more artifacts into the sound. That looks like that was already silenced, but the front wasn't.
Welcome, young princess and friend.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a golden ear. I think that's part of the thing here. So if I'm creating artifacts in the file, I don't know that I would notice them as much as other people would. So again, I'm just kind of doing the best that I can with what I've got to work with. I've got me to work with, and that's it. And more's the pity, right? In some cases.
How can I assist my king's most favored daughter this evening?
Okay, I like that. It's just a straight up boom. Get a little speech. Do a little fade out there.
Daughter this evening.
Perfect. Save that. Close it up. Go on to the next. So I doubt that today I'm going to even finish this or get to the point where I'm actually editing this together, which is really, what I need to be doing. Do the limiter. I think, to my, so I, well, there's kind of some background. I don't currently have a paying job, and I do spend my time looking for work, uh, looking for jobs to apply to, applying to jobs, blah blah blah, all of that. And so the people in my family, of course, they want to know, like, what am I doing with my time during the day? And I think, this, to me, this is part of my answer to that. I want my kids to know, what it looks like to do this project, that they're aware I've been investing effort into doing. I want them to be able to see it, see it in action. I think with any project, it's one thing to tell someone, hey, look, this is going to take, a couple months to do this. That's one thing. It's another thing to say, here, look at the work that I'm doing, so you can see why.
That I am, Your Majesty. That I am.
Yeah, see, like, I don't think I need to silence that middle part. I think the middle part is fine. Not even noticeable.
That I am.
So, that was pretty easy. Moving on. I think, I say, I think a lot. I'll try to stop doing that. I think it is possible to create like a macro, like a combination of key presses to replicate what I'm doing, at least at the start here, like the volume and compression and all of that.
She's a tiny thing.
Why not? Why would I not do that? It would help me. This is a relatively big project. I think, that's fair. I think, there it was again. I think that's I think that's fair. It might help me in the long run to make a macro to do this part that is very tedious and repetitive and annoying to me, where I'm coming in and I'm normalizing the file, and then I'm fading it in and out and cutting out the silences. I'm sure there is a way to create a macro. I don't think you do it as a macro on the mouse. I don't think that would be the best way. I think you'd do it as a macro on the keyboard. So it's an effect. So you'd go it's C, Alt C, and then there isn't a shortcut to volume and compression. It's not, is it V? Okay, so if you went Alt C, V, and then loudness normalization, it's not going to be L, and it's not going to be N. Alt C, V, Z? No. Sometimes, like, you see up here, it's underlined the letter that you need. Now, I'm sorry, I'm pointing with my finger. Okay. You see up here, it's underlining with the letter. In here, it's not. It's not I don't know what letter this is. It's not N, because that's this one, and it's not L, because that's this one. I don't know what letter this one is. Okay. Did I save this? I think I did. So if I made a macro and I made it off of keyboard key presses, it could work. It could speed this up, right? Maybe. Here's one of the things that I ran into with my last job, where I was working in an office environment. It was a lot more interesting to me to create an automation. Like we're, like we're talking about macros here, which is essentially an automation.
But you should both be careful. Without...
Okay, I need to see this a little better. So I enjoy. So All right, I'll stop calling myself out for it. I'm trying to
Both
improve.
be careful. Without the king...
Creating automations for common tasks was more interesting than doing them, particularly after years of doing them. After a lot of repetition, finding a new way is great.
Permission. Well, there are men.
But one of the things that I found in the workplace was that sometimes it wasn't worth it. Like sometimes the automation that you'd come up with wasn't universal enough, so you couldn't apply it in all scenarios. Or maybe you couldn't even really tell immediately whether or not you could apply it. So a lot of times just doing it manually ended up being quicker than trying to apply the automation that you developed. And so what do you call that? You just call that a bad automation. Like, your automation's bad. You need to do a better job. You need to create an automation that makes more sense for what you're doing.
You were raised by Ecclesay, and yet you became a mage.
See, I think that one's fine. There's really not a lot in there. I didn't hear any breathtaking or anything in the middle of it. So I think we just do that. Save it. Dump out. So that's kind of what I'm trying to say in my, broken, distracted mind, is that right now it just feels like making the macro is going to take more time than it's going to save. It's not going to be worth it. So there's a breaking point.
They aren't always wrong, They aren't always wrong, when they...
I think there's a little bit of a breath there. There's a breaking point where you realize, look, I need this automation. It is going to save time. And when that happens, then the first thing you immediately realize is, man, I've lost a lot of time to just not making the automation in the first place. And that's a bummer. And that kind of led me to thinking things like, well, then just always make the automation just right away. Just default to making the automation, right? Because then you avoid wasting time doing the task without it. And that's true to an extent, but when you always make the automation, then you always waste time on things that didn't need to be automated. The manual version was the only version that was ever going to work. The automation itself, not helpful, just a waste of time. Or like the implementation of the automation is just bad. Part of automating a task is understanding really the details of how the task is done. And so if you start from a place of, I'm going to automate this, you may not fully understand the task that you're automating. You might not understand it to a point that you can be effective at creating an automation for it.
I grew up in the Ortikish Kingdom.
meaning like you understand how the task is accomplished in the way that you are accomplishing it right now. But you may not understand that this task is going to be accomplished in many different ways, but it's going to be the same task. So when you make the automation, you make it to solve what you're doing right now, and then you might find out tomorrow that the thing you were doing right now yesterday, you're never going to do it again. It'll never be done that way again ever. That was just a one-off thing. And so you spent, whatever, a half an hour, 2 hours, half your day, whatever it is, creating an automation for this task that you're never going to do again. It's completely pointless what the work that you've done. The automation accomplishes nothing. And I don't know, like in my experience, that happens more often than you'd think if you take the tack of let's just always automate. Like we don't want to waste time doing things manually when we know that down the line we're going to say I could have just automated this the whole time. So let's not waste that time. So let's just automatically automate immediately every time.
Salukra, in territories held by the Ortikish before the Great Northern Assault.
That's why sometimes in a workplace you're going to run into like some grizzled old veterans of the job who are going to, undercut what you're trying to do. Anytime you say the word automation, they're going to be like, you know what you're talking about.
When we lost our home in the conflict, I was very bitter, angry at our enemy.
Could be something here. You'll run into a grizzled old veteran and you'll think to yourself, wow, they're just trying to undercut my automation because they didn't think of it. That's why. Makes them feel bad because they've been doing it manually.
Angry at our enemies. But my father laughed. He taught.
And sometimes that's true. Right? Like, I've certainly run into my fair share of coworkers who will stop at nothing to undercut your efforts and tell you that you're bad and you're wrong.
He taught me.
They will always say, there is no way to automate this. You're a dreamer or just lazy. I don't know which, but this is pointless and stupid. Just do it manually. Just shut up and get the work done. And it can be very difficult to deal with people like that. But the thing you have to realize, at least in my experience, in my anecdotal experience, the thing you need to realize is that people who say that to you, people who do that to you, a lot of times they're right.
They struggle just to eat every day.
And if you can't recognize at least the high likelihood that they're going to be right in what they're telling you, then you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss out on the wisdom being offered to you, because even though it feels more or less like a slap in the face,
they fight amongst themselves and live in.
Yeah, see, there is a breath there. I wouldn't have expected that. I would have just skipped it. Even though it feels like a slap in the face, and even though you're probably right in saying, wow, you've just given up, like you're kind of pathetic. Even though all of that, sure, it's still true that, like, they've been around. They know the job.
And live in constant desperation. To them.
And so if you're just going to discount the people that you already know know the job very well because they've been doing it for years, then yeah, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on a lot of wisdom and a lot of good advice and direction just because of the way that it's presented.
To them, we are the...
There's even a breath in here. You know, I wrestled with this very early on in my job. There was a lady that I worked with who I actually maintained a fairly decent relationship with.
We have...
She and I got along. I spent a lot of time, you know, just sort of asking her about how things were going in her life, what she was looking forward to doing, what was going on. And I think she appreciated that. I think anybody would. Like, I'd appreciate that.
We have stolen more from them than they can ever take back.
Yeah, see that part right there? Really tempted to take it out, but it's actually the end of the K sound, so I definitely don't want to. But there were moments where I felt kind of like I was lying to her face, right? Because she was the kind of person who felt like nothing could change and nothing should change. Like, she was it's just the way we've always done it kind of person.
My father said,
And I think that's just the way we've always done it is a really dumb mindset. You know, a lot of people call it out. A lot of people say it's bad. And I agree. I think that it is fundamentally bad.
Said, I ought to pity them.
Silence there. Yeah, I realize I'm not really talking about anything. Just kind of involved in this, so that's difficult.
They're unwilling.
It is. It's actually, I didn't expect it to be difficult to do this. You know, I kind of thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and record this so my kids can see what it's like to edit these files, you know, sort of prepare them for the final,
condemned them.
Where they get, you know, where I put them all together, and what kind of work goes into it. And I think, you know, like I'm succeeding at that, but at the same time, I feel like this is maybe a little boring because I can't focus enough on what I'm doing to talk about anything else. So maybe I just I don't know. Maybe this isn't a good, whoops. Oh, I think I just hit okay, that's fine. Maybe this isn't a good thing to record, and that's fine. Live and learn. So this is just chapter 9. What you're seeing me work on right now is chapter 9. What I have recorded is through chapter 17, because part 2 of the book is chapter 8 through chapter 17, I believe. I could be misremembering that. Whoops. Bumped the mic. Let's look at my guidebook here. Chapter 8 through 17. Yep. Part 2 is chapter 8 through 17. So let me see. Here in May, I had thought I would have this edited by the 16th. It's the 27th today. Let's see what else here. I didn't even plan on working on it in March. I planned on working on it in February. And I didn't even make a plan for April. April was a wash for me. So let's see. January, I wanted to get caught up, right? I wanted to get also chapters 18 through 29 recorded. Didn't do that. First, I had to rewrite them. So the book as a whole exists. I wrote it like 12 years ago. There's some changes that I want to make now that I'm going through it. So some edits, and I wanted to do the edits. I wanted that to be a part of January. That didn't happen either. And then in my plan here, I had a plan in January to have this whole thing edited by January 22nd. And I think that was possible, actually. I think I could have done that. I think some of the days got away from me a little more than I expected, and I kind of learned that, you know, I might be trying to squeeze too much in each day. I have definitely, over the months, begun to realize that there are a limited number of hours in the day does truly mean that I'm not gonna have the time to do everything that I would like to do every day. It's just not gonna be possible. I mean, even just looking at what I'm doing here, I figured, let's just talk about like what's possible with timing, right? Let's have a short discussion about that in these final few minutes. I looked at this project and I thought, I'm going to try to just edit the audio files, put silences in.
There are always two sides to every struggle.
You know, just do what I'm doing. Take the breaths out and normalize the volume. I'll be able to do that for all of the audio for chapter 9 within an hour. And in fact, it'll be so easy to do that I'm also going to talk. I'm going to cover some topics. I'm going to explain my thoughts to my kids while I'm doing it.
We can see and understand our side clearly because it's ours. We feel.
Okay, there's a breath here. So in my mind, you know, this only takes an hour. So if I'm planning today out and I'm thinking this only takes an hour,
We feel.
then I'm planning on doing more with my day than just this. There's a breath here. And as you can see, my hour is over. Let's take a look. I actually want to finish this really quick before I move on. So
justified in what we have done and are planning to do.
Another breath. So even though I want to be done with this and I want to end this video because it's been an hour, I also...
It's noon. It's time for lunch.
There's my...
Remember to wash your hands.
Here's my reminder. Just went off.
Because we understand our reasons.
I don't want to leave a file half done. Whew. Took a lot to get that out.
Our enemies are the same way.
I want to just have this file done, save it, and then I will mark that this is as far as I got with chapter 9 during this hour, a little more than an hour.
They too feel right and justified in their actions. They have their reasons.
And that'll help me. Basically that's it. This is going to help me so that the next time I come to this project, I'm not wondering like, oh, how far did I get in this specific file?
Which we may never understand.
I'll just know, well, I wouldn't leave a file halfway done, so I must have finished this one. So even though it's costing time right now,
Just
I think it saves time in the long run. Because the time I'm spending right now also, like, this time has to be spent. Like, this isn't wasted time. It's not like this editing this file wasn't going to take this time. It just wasn't. I was thinking maybe
calling
not
your
on
enemies
stream,
evil is
on the video.
convenient, but wrong.
This is a very repetitive task, and the reason, I guess, just to sum up everything that I've said, the reason I'm not making a macro to automate it is because I doubt I could do that in a meaningful way.
The Ecclesay have stopped.
Oh, there is a breath here. That's a bummer. I would love to have left this one alone. So why am I taking all the breaths out? Like, wouldn't my characters also breathe?
Have stopped wondering what the reasons are.
Yeah, they would. I'm taking the breaths out. Here's my thought. I think realism isn't that important. Right? That's my whole thought on it. Realism isn't that important. What's important is whether or not people are going to enjoy listening to it.
If they disagree,
And I think if there's a bunch of, mouth breathing in the recording, I think that people are not going to enjoy that. People are going to rather dislike that. So if somebody listens to my book and they hear something they don't like, they're going to probably not want to listen to any more.
they just call it evil.
Hey, we made it to the end. And I don't want that. I want it to be a pleasant experience for whoever's undertaking the experience, right? So this is the 12th file of Orinth. So what I need to do now is I'm going to need to make a project book. I have all of these. These are cheap. I got a whole box of them. And I use them because while I do think it takes less money and possibly even less effort to keep track of things on the computer, I've just never been adept at doing that. So I have a bunch of these project books. Just going to use that for this right now. But I need to mark clearly what this project book is. I have some of these that are just, they're black, they're unmarked. These end up being like scratch pads. But this one happens to have very important information about how I need to normalize the files for Audible, which is the service that I'm using. This one, I have written what it is. This is a set. This is a set of projects that I'm doing that is not part of what I'm recording. This one, not written on, has just sort of become a scratch pad. This one's actually full, so it's on its way to the trash. I throw away notebooks when they get full, yeah. I do, because they take up space. Maybe I could keep them if they were digital files or whatever. I'm not sure. Anyway, so this book is we'll put a year on it. Sure, it's 2025. We'll call it audiobook editing log. Good enough. Now I know what it is. So I'm just going to make a note here. Today is the 27th. And I'm in chapter 9. And I stopped on number 12, which is done. So now I've made a note. When I get back to this, I can look at my notebook, say, okay, I'm on 12, and get going. No questions asked. And yeah. So that's it, I think, for right now. I made it to 12, and I thought I was going to get it all. How many files are left to do? Well, there's 68 files in this chapter, and there are 50 left. So I only got through 18 in an hour. So it's gonna take a few hours. This is probably more reasonable to think that editing a chapter will take an entire day. Yeah. So miscalculation, but now I can make a better schedule next time.